in this video, you want to determine the idea of finding a quadratic equation out of what a given root. So if you don't know what a quadratic equation is, this is just a simple diagram to demonstrate that, right? If this is a diagram, it's either opens, it goes like this or the other way around, right? Is that okay? Depends on whatever you are looking for. Now, these are the roots. So this point here is what we call the root of the quadratic equation, where this curve here, you can think of this curve to be anything. It can be an arc, or it can be anything that you can think of, right? Or maybe a basket handle, right? Anything, or ladies bag handle, right? So this can be any curve that you can think of. Right, when you say the root is exactly where the curve passes or touches this line. So we are calling this line the what? The x-axis. Is that okay? So this point, what we are calling what? The root of the quadratic. Right, this is one root, and this is the second root. So these are the roots of the quadratic. The same thing applies to this point here. Is that okay? This is what we call the roots of the quadratic equation. Now we want to determine this in theory, maybe in written form without this diagram. So how do you do that? Now, according to the question, these are the roots that we are having, right? So those just what I showed you earlier on. This is one root, and what this is what one root. So this is just in what set form or radical form, right? So we are going to use this thing to determine the equations of the quadratic. The key here is that you must know what to use and what how to use it. That is the most important thing here. So if I tell you that I have a beautiful bus here, right? So I have a very nice bus here. Is that okay? So this is what a bus here that can convey you to what your college. Is that okay? So assuming this is the way, maybe one way. Is that okay? So one way that you can get to your college by taking what this bus, or you go for it, provided that you want to get to your college. Is that okay? So now what are you going for to determine the quadratic equation if you have the root of those quadratic equations? So this is what you have to use. This you must use this in, just like in the case of the bar, you have to use the x squared and then minus, or you call something the sum of root, right? So the sum of the root be given to you, then multiply by x here, and then plus of you have the product of the root, right? Product of the root, and then everything equal to 0, right? So you must know this thing. If you don't have this thing, there's no way you can get to the college, right? So assuming this is the bus that can take you to your destination, right? This is a very simple to analyze. Now let's see how to do that. Now, since we know this thing here, now we can easily go for it, right? So by going for this, what I mean is that this the sum of the roots, we are given the root, right? So this is the root number 1, the root number 2. So here we are going to find the sum of these two roots, right? Sum of roots here. So meaning that we are going to add these two people. That is 3 minus what? Root 3, and then plus what? 3 plus what? Root 3. So this is what we are calling the sum. So how do you add this thing? You just need to take the bracket off. You are having 3 minus what? Root 3 plus what? 3, and then plus what? Root 3. I will say that these people goes away, right? So these are that results. So we have the answer to be equal to 6. Now, the reason why we are finding the sum here is that we have the definition here, or maybe there's a seat in the bars called what? Sum of the roots, right? So the next one is the product of the roots, meaning that we have to multiply these two people. Is that okay? Just the way of multiply. So some product of the root here. You have the product of the root. So you have what? 3 minus root 3, everything multiplied by what? 3 plus what? Plus what? Root 3, right? Just do the multiplication and have your answer. Now this guy will multiply this, the same person also has to multiply this one here, and then this will multiply this, and this is also multiply that, right? If you don't know how to multiply set, make sure that you check our playlist or under set for you to have a clear understanding of how to multiply this. Okay, this is a quick one here. This one multiplied by this also give us 9. This one multiplied by that will give you positive 3 root 3, and then this multiplied by this will give you a negative 3 root 3, and then this multiplied by this. The way of multiplying set to set is I have to multiply the under, right? The numbers under the radical. I'll give us a positive root 9, right? So root 9, and that should be 3. So this guy and this guy goes away. Can you see? Here will be 3. So we have a 9 minus what? Minus 3. That is exactly equal to 6, right? So the answer, the product is equal to 6, and the sum is also equal to 6. So at this point, what we are going to do here, we are just going to replace them, right? Wherever you see the sum, we put the number there, and wherever you see the product, we are going to put the number there as well. So here, this guy remains as it is. We have what? X squared, right? So let's use a different pen to demonstrate that. So we have here to be what? X squared, right? So you have x squared here minus the sum of the product, that is what? 6x here. Remember there's x attached to this one, plus or the product of the root, that is 6, everything equal to 0. This is exactly what they have been asking us to find, right? So this is what the quadratic equation, given what the root, we are given the root. So okay, so what will happen if we are not given the root to be in numbers form, right? But maybe you are given the quadratic here, and they ask you to find what the summations of the root, or maybe the product, or in some case. Let's have a look at the question here. And so from the question, we are given this thing to be what? The quadratic equation. Unlike the first part, we are given the root to find the quadratic equation, but here we are given the quadratic equation. Then we are told that this alpha and beta are the root, right? So this thing can be what? Any number you can think of. Is that okay? So these two people are the root of the quadratic equation, right? Now we have been asked to find what? 1 over alpha plus or 1 over beta. This is what they are asking us to find. Is that okay? So we need to determine these two people before we can proceed to this point. Now here's the key. Once again, you must know what to use and how to use it. Is that okay? We know that in finding the quadratic equation, 1, you have to know the sum of the root, and then 2, you have to know what? The product of the root, right? So by here, if you are given the quadratic equation, you are not giving the root. So the way of solving this is that you have to first of all determine, since these two people are the roots of the quadratic equation, then you have what? Alpha plus beta. So the sum of the root, right? So alpha plus beta here, that should be equal to negative b over a, right? And I'll explain this a and b in just a few seconds. And then alpha beta, so alpha multiplied by beta, so this is the product, right? So this is the sum of the root b given from the question here, and then that is the sum. We know that when you find, you have to determine the sum and the product as well. So the product here is equal to c over what? Over a. Okay, these are the two things that you have to use if you are giving the root in this form, right? With the quadratic equation, right? Remember here you are given the quadratic equation, and then these are the roots, right? Unknown numbers. Is that okay? Like in the first case, you are giving the root in what? Some numbers, and then they ask you to find the quadratic equation. But here you are given the quadratic equation, and then with the unknown root, and then they want us to evaluate this thing, right? So you first of all determine the sum of the root by negative b over what? Over c, and then alpha beta, so the product of the roots is also c over a. So this a, b, c, d are coming from a, b, c, right? So a, b, c, they are coming from what? The quadratic equation, right? So they are coming from the quadratic equation. This is our a. A is always the number that is attached to the x squared here, right? A is always the number that is attached to the x squared, right? And then b is the one that is attached to the x, right? So here is what? B, and then finally this is our c. Is that okay? So maybe make sure that you stay to the end of this video, whereby we can interchange this thing, right? For you to see all the tricks that you're supposed to understand for what exams or idea. Now, since we have the A and B and the C as well, so here we are going to replace that. So here is going to go negative. So the B is negative 10, right? So negative 10 here. So that is negative 10, and then everything over A. A is 2. So this one gives us 5, right? So you have here to be 5. What about this one? So here will be C, which is 5, and then divided by 2, right? So this is what we are having. Right, so once you have these two people, we can proceed and come and solve this one. So the way of solving this, and this is a fraction, right? So this is a fraction. So the additions of a fraction, you need your least common multiple. That's also in the short form, the LCM. So the LCM with this to be alpha beta, right? So here we are going to have the alpha beta to be our LCM. So here it will go here. Here we are left with beta and then plus what? Here is going to be what? We are left with what? Alpha, right? So in alphabetical order, that is alpha plus what? Beta, everything divided by what? Alpha beta. Is that okay? So that is why you need to know this thing in the first place. It's okay. So this will be your stepping stone. So you have alpha plus beta. So alpha plus beta give us 5 at the top here, right? And then down here you are going to have alpha beta, that is of 5 and then over 2. So the answer to this one, if you don't know how to solve this, to make sure that you give me your answer. Also, by the way, so this is just divided by, let's rewrite this thing. You have that divided by 2. So we don't divide in a fraction. The law here says that you should interchange this second fraction by changing this symbol to a multiplication sign, right? So here is going to be 5 and then multiply by 2 over 5. So this one cancel out, right? So here the answer is equal to 2. Is that okay? So you have 2 to be the answer. What the question is asking you to find is that you find the 1 over alpha plus or 1 over beta everything squared, right? So after solving for this one, we had what? We had 2, right? So 2 squared here, that is equal to 4, right? If you gain some value from this video, make sure that you give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more, comment down below if you have any question.